Oh, the golden age of Hollywood when a puff of smoke on screen wasn't just a habit, but a symbol of style and personality. In cinema, the cigarette represented charm, rebellion, mystery, and sometimes irresistible romance. In real life, many stars appeared with cigarettes so often that it became part of their legendary image. From elegant actresses exhaling captivating smoke during interviews to rugged gentlemen who made smoking look sophisticated and cinematic. All contributed to making the hazy smoke an unforgettable hallmark of Hollywood's golden age. Do you see this image as romantic or a dangerous warning? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe to discover more little-known stories about the golden age of cinema. Clark Gable, the man dubbed the King of Hollywood, an icon of charisma with his sharp gaze, confident demeanor, and captivating performances, especially in Gone with the Wind. On screen, he was always incredibly attractive and almost unbeatable. But behind that glamour, Gable was bound by a long-standing habit, smoking cigarettes with astonishing frequency. 3 packs of filterless cigarettes a day had become a familiar part of his life. Beyond cigarettes, Gable also enjoyed cigars, pipe tobacco, and strong drinks backstage. During his peak, he maintained the powerful image of a Hollywood legend, having served in the military during World War II and becoming one of America's most famous faces. But over time, his body began to show its pain. Repeated heart attacks as he entered middle age signaled the price of his lifestyle. Despite his declining health, Gable continued to work and appear on set with his familiar demeanor. He remained a symbol of Hollywood elegance even in the final days of his career, often seen with a cigarette between scenes. But after several heart attacks, his body could no longer endure it. Clark Gable passed away at the age of 59, bringing to an end the life of one of the greatest stars in American film history. His legacy is not only his classic roles and the captivating image of a Hollywood king, but also a reminder of the dark side of a lifestyle once considered iconic of the era. Clark Gable may have overcome the pressures of fame and the harsh years of Hollywood, but ultimately could not conquer the habits that had followed him throughout his life. Humphrey Bogart, a man considered a quintessential style icon of classic Hollywood, with his slightly askew fedora, elegant trench coat, and a cigarette always in his mouth, he was not just an actor but the embodiment of captivating coolness. In films like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, Bogart made smoking an integral part of his cinematic persona. Sharp, mysterious, and unforgettable. Interestingly, this image initially emerged quite by chance, during a long scene. Bogart jokingly said he needed something to break the monotony, and the director offered him a cigarette. No one expected that moment to contribute to one of Hollywood's most iconic images. From then on, the cigarette almost became Bogart's trademark. Audiences loved the weary, experienced look and calm demeanor he displayed in each role. But behind that stylish exterior lay a life of immense pressure. Bogart smoked continuously for many years and drank heavily during the peak of his career. Over time, his health began to decline significantly, but he continued to work as an unshakable icon of Hollywood. Eventually, doctors diagnosed him with esophageal cancer, a disease believed to be linked to prolonged smoking. The man who had faced all kinds of dangers on screen now had to battle his own illness in real life. Humphrey Bogart died before the age of 60, leaving behind a great cinematic legacy and an unforgettable image in Hollywood history. He transformed the cigarette into a symbol of sophistication for decades. But his life story also serves as a reminder that sometimes the most glamorous images come with a very high price. Bette Davis, a strong woman with piercing eyes and the unmistakable aura of classic Hollywood. She didn't just act. She lived each role to the fullest, and the image of a cigarette in her hand became almost inseparable from that style. Davis smoked on screen, in real life during interviews, even while waiting at the dentist's office. For her, cigarettes weren't simply props but an integral part of her authenticity. If a character smoked, She wanted everything to be completely natural. Over time, this habit became legendary in Hollywood. Bette Davis could smoke several packs a day, and once admitted she felt uncomfortable if she had to go too long without a cigarette. Friends often joked that standing too close to her could burn you with cigarette ash. Smoke was almost always present around her. From the film set to backstage, as if it had become a part of this star's daily life. Remarkably, despite smoking for decades, Davis retained her characteristic strong presence, while many of her colleagues gradually lost their prime looks. She maintained her distinctive husky voice and sharp gaze until the end of her life. Later, she suffered from breast cancer. Not lung cancer, but even in her final years, Bette Davis maintained her familiar, unwavering demeanor. Bette Davis's legacy lies not only in her Oscar awards and iconic roles, but also in the image of a charismatic, bold, and completely different actress from the rest of Hollywood. She transformed her on-screen presence into a kind of power. And in the eyes of many viewers, the cigarette in her hand was not just a habit, it became part of classic Hollywood legend. Richard Burton, a man with a captivating voice and stage talent that commanded respect from both Hollywood and Broadway. When appearing in Shakespearean productions, Burton felt as if every line was tailor-made for him. But beyond the spotlight, Burton's life was shrouded in cigarettes, alcohol, and an extreme lifestyle. Burton smoked almost incessantly, from backstage and rehearsal rooms to interviews. A cigarette was always present, a familiar part of his personal image. Alongside this was his love of whiskey and his famous marriage to Elizabeth Taylor, a relationship that was both intense, captivating, and tumultuous. They became an iconic Hollywood couple living in the spotlight. Emotions and excessive habits. For years, doctors repeatedly warned Burton about his health. But he continued his lifestyle as if he believed he could overcome any obstacle. However, time gradually left its mark. Smoking and heavy drinking eroded his body, leaving the man who once commanded the stage with his powerful voice weary and weakened with age. Richard Burton died at the age of 58, leaving behind a brilliant career and roles considered legendary in film and theater. He is remembered as an artist with a unique charisma, living intensely and giving his all to his talent and emotions. But his life story also serves as a reminder that even the brightest stars sometimes cannot escape the price of long-standing habits. Rod Serling, the man who brought millions of viewers into the Twilight Zone, was not just a television screenwriter, but a mind that changed how America viewed science fiction and psychological thrillers. With his captivating storytelling and scripts about time travel, aliens, and haunting twists, Serling transformed each episode into an unforgettable experience. But behind that genius imagination lay a life consumed by smoking and years of relentless pressure. Serling smoked almost constantly while writing, editing scripts, or working late into the night. Cigarettes seemed to become his constant companion in all his creative endeavors. After the resounding success of The Twilight Zone, instead of resting, Serling continued to work intensely, maintaining his smoking and drinking habits for a long time. The creative pressure and stressful pace of life gradually took a toll on his health. In his later years, Serling faced severe cardiovascular problems and underwent major heart surgery. However, his body was too exhausted after years of overwork and prolonged smoking. Rod Serling died at the age of 50, leaving behind a television legacy that continues to have a profound impact today. What makes Serling's story special is the contrast between his extraordinary talent and his silent battle with his own health. The man who created some of the most famous on-screen nightmares ultimately couldn't escape the dark side of habits that had plagued him throughout his life, as if he himself had stepped into an episode of The Twilight Zone. Sammy Davis Jr., a multi-talented Hollywood entertainer, was a singer, actor, dancer, and legendary member of the Rat Pack. On the Las Vegas stage, he was always full of energy, with a smooth, captivating style that almost no one could take their eyes off. But alongside his exceptional talent, there was another familiar image, the cigarette that was always present in his performances. Sammy often sang and smoked on stage, creating a bold and distinctive performance style. While many other artists only used props to create atmosphere, Sammy made cigarettes an integral part of his performance. Audiences loved his confidence and characteristic coolness, but over time, that very habit began to affect his voice. Years later, doctors discovered that Sammy's vocal cords were seriously damaged due to prolonged smoking. His once electrifying voice gradually weakened, a devastating blow to an artist whose life depended on music and performance. Despite this, Sammy remained strong, continuing to appear before the public with his familiar confidence. Sammy Davis, Jr., left a significant legacy in American entertainment history, an artist who could sing, dance, act, and command the stage in his own unique way. But his story is also a reminder that even the brightest talents sometimes face the consequences of years of ingrained habits. Errol Flynn, Hollywood's most rebellious young man, embodied flamboyance, adventure, and an uninhibited lifestyle. On screen, he became a legend with roles like The Adventures of Robin Hood, portraying a charming, elegant, and charismatic hero. But in real life, Flynn was known for his all-night parties, heavy drinking, and chaotic life behind the scenes. Flavor lived as if there were no tomorrow. He frequently threw boisterous parties with his Hollywood friends, where drinking and excessive revelry were almost commonplace. It's said that he and actor David Niven jokingly called their seaside home Cirrhosis, by the sea, a playful way of reflecting their carefree lifestyles. Flynn was famous for his incredible drinking capacity, and always found ways to turn every gathering into a boisterous spectacle. Beyond his cinematic glamour, Flynn's private life was also constantly plagued by rumors and controversies. He became the center of numerous scandals during the peak of his career, further solidifying his image as the bad boy of Hollywood. Over time, his excessive lifestyle began to seriously affect his health. Flynn's body deteriorated rapidly, and despite being only in his early 40s, he looked much older than his actual age. Errol Flynn died at the age of 50 after a heart attack, ending the life of one of the most prominent and notorious figures in classic Hollywood. He left behind the image of a star who lived life to the fullest, embracing fame, freedom, and emotion. But Flynn's story also serves as proof of the price many Hollywood legends pay for living too fast and too intensely. Tallulah Bankhead, the rebellious Broadway and Hollywood star, embodied boldness, humor, and individuality during the golden age of cinema. With her sharp wit, distinctive husky voice, and strong personality, she was always the center of attention at any party. And almost wherever Tallulah went, there was a cloud of cigarette smoke for Bankhead. Cigarettes were not just a habit, but an integral part of her iconic image. It said she could smoke dozens a day, chatting, joking, and constantly lighting them as if it were a natural part of her life. Alongside these were long nights of partying, strong drinks, and a carefree lifestyle, making her one of the most prominent figures in classic Hollywood. Tallulah was renowned for her sharp wit and dramatic demeanor. Her deep, husky voice is even said to have inspired many famous film characters that followed. Despite a life constantly intertwined with chaos and scandals, she maintained a unique charm that no one could replicate. When Tallulah Bankhead passed away at the age of 66, she left behind not only a memorable stage and film career, but also the image of a woman who lived life to the fullest with her own distinct personality. Amidst the bright lights, parties, and thick smoke, Tallulah became one of Hollywood's most distinctive legends. Yul Brynner, a man with the aura of a king who never left his smoking throne. If Clark Gable was the king of Hollywood, then Brynner resembled a true pharaoh with his signature shaved head, deep, captivating voice, and an aura that could silence an entire room with a single glance. He conquered both Broadway and the silver screen. But behind that glamour lay an almost inseparable bond with cigarettes. Brenner smoked almost all the time in the rehearsal room. On set, backstage, or between interviews, the smoke seemed to become an integral part of his iconic image. For years, he appeared strong and invincible, as if the cigarettes were merely props in his dramatic life. But illness didn't care about fame or glory. When lung cancer ravaged his body, the Hollywood pharaoh finally succumbed. What makes Brenner's story special is that he transformed his personal tragedy into a warning to others. Before his death, he appeared in a promotional video for the American Cancer Society, frail but powerful. Looking directly into the camera and saying, "Now that I'm gone, please don't smoke," the video aired posthumously, making the man who once played kings and conquerors an icon of the dark side of tobacco. Yul Brynner's legacy lies not only in his legendary roles and powerful stage presence, but also in his unforgettable reminder of the price of habits once considered iconic. Jackie Gleason, a man of enormous stature and a lifestyle even more oversized than his appearance. He was not only a famous television star, but a true entertainment phenomenon. As Ralph Cramden in The Honeymooners, Gleason captivated millions with his distinctive voice, charming humor, and charisma that could liven up any room. But behind that laughter lay a life of excess fueled by hard liquor, cigarettes, and enormous meals. Gleason wasn't simply a food lover, he turned every dinner into a feast. He indulged in dish after dish with almost limitless enthusiasm, finishing with an astonishingly large amount of ice cream. But that was only part of his famous lifestyle. Whiskey was almost always present, and cigarettes were so commonplace that he once smoked up to 5 packs a day, a number that would surprise even heavy smokers. Over time, excess leaves its mark. Gleason's health gradually declined, mobility became difficult, and his body began to react to years of overindulgence. Even so, he retained his signature humor, even self-deprecatingly mocking himself with dark, satirical remarks. Audiences still cherished him as an icon greater than life itself. A man who always brought laughter despite the immense pressure and unhealthy habits behind the scenes. Ultimately, colon cancer ended Jackie Gleason's life at the age of 71. He left behind a brilliant career, unforgettable roles, and a reminder of the price of excessive living. Jackie Gleason made America laugh for years. But his life story also shows that even the greatest icons cannot forever ignore the limits of their bodies. John Wayne, the man considered the embodiment of the Hollywood cowboy. He was not only an actor, but also an icon of strength, toughness, and the American spirit on screen. With his towering stature, distinctive husky voice, and powerful gaze, Wayne appeared in over 170 westerns and almost always emerged victorious. But in real life, his most dangerous adversary was his long-standing smoking habit. Wayne smoked almost incessantly. He was often seen with a cigarette in hand in interviews, on film sets, and in cigarette advertising campaigns in the 1950s. The image of the Duke riding a horse, smiling with a puff of smoke, became a familiar part of Hollywood culture at the time. Strong, rugged, but also dangerous. Over time, Wayne's health began to seriously decline. Doctors were forced to remove a large portion of his left lung to treat the disease, but even after that major surgery, he didn't completely give up smoking. He continued to work, continued to appear on screen with his familiar tough demeanor, even though his body was no longer the same as before. Years later, stomach cancer ended the life of this Hollywood legend at the age of 72. John Wayne's legacy lives on as the most iconic cowboy in American cinema. He defeated countless villains on screen, but ultimately could not win the silent battle with the habits that had followed him throughout his life. Spencer Tracy was more than just a Hollywood star. He was a respected actor of exceptional talent. With 2 Oscars, numerous prestigious nominations, and a string of iconic roles, Tracy became one of the biggest faces in American cinema. He was also famous for his deep relationship with Katharine Hepburn, his partner both on and off screen. But behind that brilliant career lay a life consumed by cigarettes, alcohol, and tranquilizers. Tracy smoked almost incessantly. Cigarettes were always present in the dressing room, on set, or during behind-the-scenes conversations. For him, cigarettes seemed an inseparable part of his daily routine. Alongside this was a long-standing drinking habit and dependence on sleeping pills, which gradually deteriorated his health over time. As he aged, his body began to react noticeably. Weight gain became uncontrollable, breathing became heavy. And he was repeatedly hospitalized for cardiovascular and respiratory problems. Doctors believed that years of smoking and drinking had severely weakened his heart. From then on, Tracy's life gradually narrowed into silence and weariness. He rarely appeared in public, living his final years under the devoted care of Katharine Hepburn. Their love became one of Hollywood's most famous stories, with Hepburn always by his side until his last days. But even that devotion could not erase the consequences of years of unhealthy living. Spencer Tracy, who once dominated the silver screen with his talent and exceptional charisma, was ultimately defeated by the very habits that had plagued him throughout his life. His legacy is not only his iconic roles, but also a reminder that even the greatest icons cannot forever ignore the limits of their health and bodies. Julie London, a singer with a captivatingly smooth, husky voice, was one of the most alluring jazz icons of the 20th century. Her voice was velvety, evoking the atmosphere of dimly lit jazz bars and emotionally charged concerts. But behind that distinctive voice lay a long-standing smoking habit. Julie started smoking at a young age and maintained it for most of her life. At the peak of her career, she smoked frequently, and over time, the smoke became almost an integral part of her image and voice. On stage, the subtle huskiness from the cigarettes created a unique charm, making her unforgettable to audiences whenever she sang. But off-stage, this habit gradually took a serious toll on her health. Despite numerous pleas from family and doctors to change her lifestyle, Julie continued to smoke for many years. Later, her health deteriorated significantly, with a series of serious cardiovascular and lung problems. The woman who once silenced an entire room with a single song spent her final years in quiet solitude and weariness. Julie London died at the age of 74, leaving behind a voice that still resonates in late-night jazz and in the memories of generations of listeners. Her story is both a symbol of the glamorous beauty of old Hollywood and a reminder of the price many artists pay for habits once considered part of a lifestyle. Shirley Temple, America's Golden Girl, was once an icon of innocence and joy during the Great Depression. With her signature curly hair, radiant smile, and famous tap dance moves, she brought optimism to millions of viewers on screen. But as she grew older, her life gradually shifted from the innocent image the public remembered. Like many Hollywood stars of that era, Shirley Temple began smoking and maintained this habit for many years. However, her American Girl image meant that this was almost never mentioned publicly. While audiences still remember Shirley for her loveliness and brightness, her private life was quietly intertwined with nicotine throughout decades of artistic and diplomatic activity. Over time, Temple's health began to suffer. She developed chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, a disease often associated with prolonged smoking. Nevertheless, in the public eye, Shirley Temple will always be the little girl who could make the whole of America smile with just a song or a dance. Shirley Temple's story shows that even the brightest icons of Hollywood are not entirely immune to the dark side of the prevailing habits of that era. Behind the bright lights and famous smiles remains an ordinary person facing the consequences of their own lifestyle. Winston Churchill, the legendary British Prime Minister, was famous not only for his powerful speeches during World War II, but also for the ever-present image of a cigar in his hand, with his resolute demeanor, distinctive hat, and unmistakable style. Churchill made cigars an integral part of his image. whether at cabinet meetings, on warships, or on wartime missions. He was almost always seen with his familiar smoke. Churchill didn't view cigars merely as a habit, but almost as a daily ritual. He was known for smoking a large number of cigars daily, paired with strong liquor and lavish meals. It's even said that he used special equipment on airplanes to continue smoking cigars during wartime flights. This further solidified his image in the public eye, despite warnings from many doctors about this lifestyle. Churchill lived much longer than many of his contemporaries, a fact that surprised many. Over time, his name became intertwined with both political history and popular culture, to the point that a famous cigar style today still bears the name Churchill. Winston Churchill's legacy is not only his leadership during Britain's most difficult period, but also the image of a man of strong character, inseparable from the cigar smoke that has become his iconic symbol. Alan Landers, who once appeared in Winston commercials, was the perfect embodiment of American style. Dapper, masculine, and always with a cigarette in his mouth, in front of the camera. He not only promoted cigarettes, but also represented a lifestyle the industry wanted to sell to the public. But behind that glamorous image lay a long-standing habit. Landers smoked heavily every day, over time. His health began to deteriorate significantly. Landers faced lung cancer, throat cancer, and emphysema diseases linked to prolonged smoking. What makes his story special is that instead of remaining silent, Landers decided to publicly share his experience to warn others. The man who was once the face of the tobacco industry has now become one of its strongest voices of protest. He appeared at schools, participated in community campaigns, and shared the consequences he had suffered after years of smoking. His surgical scars became a direct reminder of the dark side behind the glamorous advertisements that once dominated America. Alan Landers transformed his personal story into a powerful warning from a tobacco advertising icon. He became living proof of the price many pay for habits once considered symbols of coolness and style. After all, the stories of these stars and icons reveal an undeniable truth: talent, fame, and charisma cannot save people from the consequences of long-standing habits. They all left a significant mark on film, music, and entertainment history. But behind that glamour were very real costs that their bodies had to bear over time. These stories are not just about Hollywood or the golden age of cinema, but also a reminder that even seemingly invincible icons cannot forever ignore their own health. What do you think about the impact of these habits on the lives and careers of Hollywood legends? Share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy stories like these, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to follow more interesting hidden aspects of the old entertainment world.